Right now, let's talk about Donald Trump. Well, he's got a whole spate of different criminal trials he's awaiting over the next year or so. He's also got a civil trial, a lawsuit against him by the New York Attorney General Letitia James that starts next week. However, there's been a court ruling in advance of that. Basically, the Attorney General said, look, to the judge, can you rule on the stuff that is basically not up for contention for you, and it's just a statement of fact? And the judge has done just that. And it's not gone well for Donald Trump. The judge has found that Donald Trump repeatedly misrepresented his wealth to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars to banks and insurers to get cheaper loans and to get lower rates of insurance paying. Basically, this is a key claim made in that case. $3.6 billion overvaluation of his Trump organization and his properties. That means he has committed fraud. So what happens next? Let's talk to Steve Gil. He's a former advisor to both the Clinton and Bush administrations. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we were waiting this case, but this ruling is a big part of this case. It involves a number of the charges that were being brought in this civil, not a criminal suit against the, well, no, it's just not Donald Trump, two of his two sons, two elder sons, but also the Trump organization and various different executives. What does this mean?
Well, first of all, it is, as you point out, this is a civil trial, so the penalty is money, not necessarily incarceration at the end of the day. I think it's frankly strange that the judge would rule in this summary judgment, which basically says there is no dispute of the facts, because the Trumps are definitely disputing the facts that the judge has decided this is what the properties are worth. They're saying they're worth a lot more, and they have a lot to back them up. For example, Mar-a-Lago, the judge says, is worth $18 million. This is a one-of-a-kind, unique property that media outlets have estimated worth $350 to $600 million. The judge says it's only worth $18 million. I guarantee you I could get a crew together. We'd go buy it tomorrow for $18 million if that's really the price. So that is in dispute, contrary to what the judge has said.
Yeah, no, that's it. There are some question marks there. But look, these are the accusations that have been swirling around Donald Trump long before his presidential ambitions were realised back in 2016. It's been going on for many years that basically he constantly, Forbes magazine did their, top wealthiest, billionaires. He always wanted to bump up the value of his company. And when you're going to get a loan, you want to bump up the value. When you do your tax return, you give much lower figures. And when those figures on official documents don't tally, then you've got a problem.
The problem is, how many others has Letitia James gone after in New York in the real estate and investment business? She campaigned for her job saying, I will get Trump. And she's the only one that she's going after. Keep in mind also, the Trumps are raising, I think, a good defense of who's the victim. Their loans were always paid on time. They never defaulted. Who's the victim here that she's trying to protect, other than make a name for herself?
Yeah, OK, taxpayers won't force. Well, again, the argument actually with that he didn't pay enough taxes, I think, but then that may be a different case. I do find it strange when the Trump supporters and lawyers say this is outrageous. This is a politicized attorney general. She's elected. She's a Democrat. She's elected to try and get Trump, and this is why it's wrong. Donald Trump, that is your system in America. You have a politicized legal system. Judicial system, I think quite wrongly, by the way. I think there's a major fault. But also Donald Trump's quite happy to put highly politicized, highly partisan judges into roles to do exactly the same thing. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, we made a few mistakes when we left you guys a couple of hundred years ago. A politicized judiciary is certainly one of those, but it's been hyper-politicized under the Biden administration with the Department of Justice, the FBI, others that have been weaponized against Donald Trump. And we see it in this slew of cases, most of which I think are going to be adjudicated by an appellate court, not a trial court. And I think that's going to be the case with this one as well.
Yeah, some of this relates not just to the Trump organization, but also to these properties. You mentioned Mar-a-Lago, the Southern White House, as Donald Trump liked it to be referred to when he was a president. But things like Trump Tower, the Trump Building, and others. This is going to affect the ownership of those buildings and that organization, isn't it? Because the judge has basically effectively said that, to all intents and purposes, Donald Trump can't sort of effectively have control over these entities because of this court ruling. So they've been ordered, the Trump Organization has been ordered to cancel its New York business licenses and within 10 days recommend independent monitors who could oversee that process. I mean, does that mean these entities, these properties are going to be seized from Donald Trump? Well, what actually happens if, this all goes ahead?
It's not clear. As you point out, she has jerked their business certifications, their ability to do business. The irony here, Julia, is nobody has been victimized by this at this point, but the judge's ruling may make them miss payments on their loans, may make them miss payments on their insurance. She's actually going to cause damage that has not been caused by the Trump Organization in the past because of her ruling in this case and because of what the district attorney is pursuing. So the only victims are being created by this particular process.
Yeah, it's interesting. Donald Trump and his lawyers are seeking to delay this trial. They've sued the judge. An appeals court is set to rule this week on that lawsuit. Otherwise, it's going to go ahead next week. Of course, that's the least of his worries, really, because we've got criminal charges in Florida, in Georgia and elsewhere as well, which are rather more serious. And, I mean, some of those charges could lead to 20 years behind bars.
One of my friends made the best point of what Americans are facing at the polls next November. If Joe Biden and Donald Trump are really going head to head, we have one guy facing sentences and another guy who can't form sentences. I think that kind of sums it up well.